Hi, Amy.
Good morning. Happy Sunday.
Well, thank you for wearing a tracksuit. Okay, so we have wanted to do this for some time, and we're actually doing it. So, how do we know each other? Maybe we start there.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah, how do we know each other? It's a story, right? It's how many years ago?
20.
20 years ago.
2006. I mean, that is, yeah, there was no AI. There was literally maybe a Nokia phone. So it was pre iPhone days,
And
basically.
look at
Can you
us
can you
now.
imagine? I know. Look at us now. We're on a podcast. We're in Miami. Yeah. So we both worked together in London, and it was a very fun innovation agency. And Amy's in HR. Still in HR.
Still in there.
And now you live in Miami and I live in LA, and we both still work in advertising.
Both still work in advertising.
And I mean, I have obviously watched your life unfold kind of from afar and vice versa.
Mm.
And I think there's lots of things that we kind of have shared in common and kind of, spoken about and connected about. But honestly, I've always thought, wow, what a story and what an amazing woman you are. And look what you all overcame, and that you still show up to life as a happy, sparkly person. And I think there's just so many things. We basically have a different perspective on things,
Mm.
and I love that. And I think maybe we start with, if I was a stranger and I don't know, we're sitting down for
Mm.
dinner. And I was like, "Oh, hi, Amy. Nice to meet you." You'd be like, "Oh, nice to meet
Mm.
you." And I said, "Just tell me a bit about yourself." How would you even enter the conversation? Because I think something that interests me before is that you said, "I like to get it out there pretty
Yeah.
quickly."
Yeah.
And so let's get it out there pretty quickly.
You know too much. You're not a stranger. But yeah, it's always that moment. And I love talking about India. India was and is still this massive light in our lives. And I try to get it in there quickly because I love talking about the situation. I love talking about her because one of the biggest things was I want to keep her memory alive. So as soon as I can weave it in, and even not to be cruel, but even if somebody is feeling uncomfortable with what I'm about to tell them, I'm going to tell them because
Yes.
the story is India, but also she is still in our minds very much present, and she
Yeah.
sits with us and shows up in so many different ways that. But as soon as I get the in, so it always comes down to where do you live, the small talk, and I'm shit at small talk as well. So I like to
Me too. Me too. Straight in there.
make people feel uncomfortable, and I'd love to get your perspective on it, because if we don't talk about things, then it can be repressed, or people don't know how to kind of navigate it.
Well, it also implies you're ashamed when you're
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I do not like, well, not do not like, because what happened to us is shit. I'm not going to beat around the bush. It's not that I wish this on anybody, but to your point, it's something that should be shared. I'm not ashamed of it, and I don't want people to feel automatically sorry for me,
Yeah.
because there were so many pockets of joy that along the journey came to us and made us realize, put things in perspective, and all the learnings and the lessons from this 2-year-old ball of fire. But essentially, I have 2 children. Always will have 2 children, and I have Olivia, who is growing up to be the wisest, most
Oh
empathetic
my God.
child.
I bet.
She is going to grow up with a different level of depth and emotional intelligence that, again, I think is a superpower. It came out of a ridiculously hard,
Yeah.
traumatic experience, but she's going to have that layer to her that I hope
Yeah.
most kids don't have. But I have 2 children, and Olivia is amazing. But I have India as well, and she got diagnosed with ATRT, which is an aggressive form of brain cancer that normally happens around 2 and doesn't have a great prognosis in the statistics. It doesn't have a great prognosis. But we never asked, like, we didn't want to know what the prognosis was, like how long, all of this kind of thing right at the front, because we were like, this is our journey. Have anybody dictate how this is going to go. It's going to be India. It's her life. Like, she's going to live it. And she passed away when she was 5. But the amazing thing was when we spoke to the doctors after the fact, and I have to say, big shout out to Nicholas Children's Hospital, home from home still. But they told us when she first came in, they were predicting 2 months. So when you think
Wow.
about that,
Mhm.
yeah, she had a short life, but did she live her life?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I can
Wow.
remember my therapist saying, what's the point of life? You come in, you leave. And India came in, lived like to the max, and then dropped the mic. Like, it was like, she was just like, I've lived. See you later, people. It was, yeah. So that's how I kind of, I suppose if I was talking to a stranger, I would talk to her. But yeah, I always say
And
I have to.
what is usually the first thing people say back?
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Right. I knew it. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if you get that reaction.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, it's your fault. Yeah. I was looking for somebody to blame you. But I don't know. Do you get that?
Yes. Or just an instant discomfort. And so just
Yes.
for context, my son is disabled, doesn't walk, doesn't talk, has a really rare disease. And yeah, it is instant discomfort. But
Yeah.
it then is your job to almost make people comfortable about it, which is
Yeah.
fascinating because then it's kind of like, no, I need to make you okay with it because I'm okay with it.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I find that's when my grief kind of does repress, because I get very, not uncomfortable is the right word, but I feel the need to go, no, 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 don't worry. Don't worry. It's, you don't need to feel sorry for me.
But I think the most interesting thing is other people that haven't been through anything like that kind of have no idea how to compute and obviously
Mm.
immediately kind of put themselves in that situation and then think, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." But the you're in such an opposite place because you're
Mm.
going, "No, I want to talk about it.
Mm.
I'm really interested in what is that journey you go through," because
Yeah.
it's that's kind of the stuff that we don't really talk about is that,
Yeah.
something unimaginable happened
Yeah.
and you can't prepare yourself for it. You can't change it. You're not in
Mm.
control of it. Yet somehow you have gone through this kind of arc where you are a really happy,
Mm.
confident, wonderful person. And I have no doubt stronger, better, braver,
Mm.
life is simpler, all of those things because of it. But it's almost an impossible thing to explain.
Yeah. Yeah, but I would say that it is a constant area of work for
Right,
me, and it shows up in different ways,
right.
given certain circumstances. So to your point, we were not prepared at all with what was going to hit us, and we went into it so naive, and we both sort of sat down and were like, okay, this is going to be a 3-month thing, and then she's going to go to university, and then
Right, right.
this did. Brilliant. Yeah, we've got this kind of like, really, because you go into it with optimism and hope.
Yeah,
Well, you try to. The shock is, I think, the worst thing, because the way it kind of, how it came out was there was a diagnosis, then there's doctors, then there's oncologists, then there's neurosurgeons, then there's how you're going to actually live in hospital for the majority of
yeah,
months or whatever, whatever it comes out of the logistics. You've got another child, your family's in a different country, insurance, how does that work?
right. Yeah,
It's the
literally.
shock. It's a
Yes.
lot. But I think slowly I got to understand that India was meant to come to us. I've become a believer in energy and spirits and
Yeah.
all that stuff,
Yeah.
that I believe India was meant to come to us. We were meant to be her parents, and we were meant to learn by it. And I think there were different things that just helped me navigate it. I think having an amazing family who is
Yeah.
supportive. I think Paul, we were, at our absolute worst, and we were together and we had it. It's that saying as well. There's always somebody worse off, and we saw that in hospital. There were
Yeah.
people that didn't have families. There were people who couldn't,
Yes.
and it was like, how are they navigating that?
I actually remember the exact same thing. It takes you to a whole
Mm.
different level of life where
Yeah.
and I also acknowledge the kind of like, Brad and I having a really kind of like good sense of humor throughout, which sounds really dark.
It's so
But
true. It's
it's
so true.
we would look at each other sometimes and
Yeah,
just burst out laughing and be like, "What the
yeah,
fuck is going on?" And in terms of I mean, I guess there's two sort of, like, aspects to the journey. One is, like, from
yeah,
diagnosis all the way through to kind of, like,
mm,
the end of the battle, and I think that is, a roller coaster in itself.
yeah,
And then there's kind of after that, but the bit that blows my mind still is that you still had to have a job during
mm,
that time, and you still kind of worked. And obviously, look, all the things that happened to you are kind of, like I said, unimaginable. But I'm so interested in how you navigated yourself, your
mm,
family, your job, you
mm.
know, and kind of showing up for others in that world and space.
Yeah. And I was thinking about this because being in HR,
Yeah,
oh,
you're in
oh,
HR.
I'm in HR. My job is to help people navigate through certain things, and it's not an easy role to have, especially when you're going through what you're going through. And I can remember a very distinct moment when India, it's like during the end of life, and I remember going out and seeing people having coffee, like enjoying themselves, and I was like, don't you know the world has just changed? How are you having like a coffee? How are you come to it? And this like unbelievable kind of like anger of this is the worst thing that could have happened to me, and you're having a coffee. And at that moment, I was like, you need to be able to manage your energy because I love my job. And you have to walk this tricky balance of not saying, hey, yeah, my kids just died and everything's great. But you have to go into your role with this very conscious way of dealing with your energy, what you're projecting and what you're bringing to the table. And I remember in that moment, I was like, even for myself, being angry is not a state that I want to be in, whether I'm working and whether I'm not. But then with the
Mm,
layer of, I want to work, I love where I work, I have to manage where I kind of put my energy and how I protect my energy. Boxing was one of the ways just to get it out. Like,
really?
yeah, I ended up Fifth Street Gym, then to Gotham, which is like a local gym, but just and I got with a trainer, and that just helped me release some of that kind of anger and go into kind of work feeling that I've shook everything off a little bit.
Why boxing? Is it like you just thought, I really wanna punch some stuff"?
Yeah, just want to punch themselves. And I can't, you can't punch people at work or your
No,
families.
no. I mean,
That's a no-go.
you could, but it might
Ah,
backfire,
it
yeah.
might backfire.
So what did you do that almost every day?
Yeah, it became a bit of a ritual, and actually my friend got me into it, and we would get up at 6, we would drive down in the dark, and then by the end of that hour, the sun had come up and you realize it's a new day,
Yeah,
you really have released something and you're ready for it. But and that has been a constant battle, like not always. I don't get everything right, and there's bad days and good days, but you you have to be authentic. Like I say, you can't go into it with this false, everything's great and I'm back at work and there's no emotion. There is emotion. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Hi.
yeah,
Like you have to be able to manage it as a senior person. Or you
yeah,
have to navigate it. And I think being able to be vulnerable
yeah,
and for people to acknowledge at work, this is shit. And it doesn't have to be a long conversation or I suppose, formal discussion at work. But I remember when I came back just after India had passed away, I was like, this is so weird. This is so surreal being in an office, having, you know, gone through the things that you need to do when somebody passes away. And this guy who I hadn't really spoken to that much just came up to me and gave me the biggest hug. And you know those hugs where you're like, they speak so much.
yeah,
And that it was just I understand. Well, not necessarily I
yeah.
understand, but
No,
you've
I'm
gone
here. I
through
get
shit.
yeah,
And then that was it. Like we didn't really speak again, but it was that acknowledgement of I see you and I recognize that you've been through something terrible and you've shifted.
yeah. And literally
Mm,
straight up to you, massive hug,
yeah.
and then kind of walked
Yeah.
off. That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm
It was.
I'm sure that there is also that kind of anticipation from others being like,
Mm,
how do I even possibly engage with
mm,
someone, or even if you being in HR, and
yeah.
they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, I just wanted to chat to you about payroll." And, like, you can imagine someone being like, "I
Yeah.
think we'll just leave it. I think we'll just it's probably not that important." And, like, trying to almost find the groove again where, no, it's
Yeah.
okay to, like, talk about anything because your stuff is your stuff, and that's still important.
Yes.
With the acknowledgement of, like, yes, something incredibly major has just happened to me, and
Mm,
it's hard to find the words, but I'm still here to do a
yeah.
job. I mean, I think especially someone in HR.
Well, that was the other thing is I got a lot of support to be able to feel the feels, to be vulnerable, to acknowledge what happened. But there was still an accountability of my
Yes.
role and
Yeah.
what I needed to do. And I feel grateful that there was that it didn't become this whole thing that Amy has gone through that. And this is her whole world now. There was an accountability that I needed to show up and actually do a job and listen to people's queries that they may feel there isn't is no comparison of, yeah, I have a
Right.
question about benefits, but your kids just like, yeah, of course, there's definitely a more important important
Yeah, it's
thing
like,
there, but
but I get it,
you
it's okay, we're gonna talk about that, yes. Like, it because
yeah,
it is all relative, and it is almost how
mm,
you dig deep within yourself to kind of give off the vibe that it is okay,
mm,
and, to,
mm,
like, I don't know, it's so hard to describe, but I think that
yeah,
I have no doubt that that's how you showed up,
mm,
and that actually the accountability to show up, that is optional, by the way. Like,
yeah,
I think that some people may not or may not be able to,
mm,
but I think that you were like, "No, I'm
mm,
getting back to work." And it's that
mm,
what people don't really think about is that that entire structure still exists, and you have to be part of it. You can't just be
mm,
that you go through something like this and then you then get the rest of your life off. It
yeah,
doesn't work like that. So then you have to you better find joy
mm,
in kind of what you do and be able to navigate it, and that's where I think it's all about people and the relationships
yeah,
that you have and how you have understood yourself, and what processing have you done that
mm,
help you show up in a way that is kind of completely disarmed and vulnerable. I
yeah,
think that piece is like a whole massive unraveling in itself. And I found that being forced to understand yourself and really
yeah,
experience things that others haven't take you to weird and wonderful places that you never
mm,
imagined. But in the
mm,
end, it helps you be a more peaceful, happier person. So I don't know
yeah,
if any of that kind of is true for you, but it's like what are some of the things that you have done that help you almost like process it and understand
mm,
yourself and kind of show up every day for other people? I think that is
mm.
fascinating. And it's probably much longer than, a podcast. But what are the some of the things?
I think get a good therapist.
Oh yeah.
Think you can't do it on your own. You can't do it
Yeah.
on your own.
No.
You need to accept that this is your situation and you need
Yeah.
to really look inside. I think when you start looking at external validation to fix, it's not even fixing because it'll never be fixed. It'll be an
No.
ongoing thing that I will address and work on. And there's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. There's lots of things
Yeah.
that are still going on that I need to always be working on. But I think therapy, it took me a while to get there because
Yeah.
I think for me, the trauma of certain things really, that was the biggest part, the traumatic elements to losing a child, being a mother of a child. There are certain things that now I realize were anxiety, where
Mm.
there was a fight or flight situation, but then I learned about freeze as well. You freeze, and there was one situation where I did freeze, and I have this constant guilt. And also, I'm a very visual person, so it's end of life can be tough.
Yeah.
So I had to find the right therapist. And for me, that was somebody dealing with trauma and how the brain reacts to trauma and how you can manipulate that so you are more able and equipped to deal with certain things. So that was
Yeah,
key because it's not just for me. I don't know about you, but it wasn't just talking through things. It was quite in-depth stuff that I had to go into to really
yeah,
stabilize certain things. And so that was a big thing because I didn't, and I do remember somebody saying, and I would recommend this to people going through a similar journey. It doesn't have to be similar, but get the therapist before it happens
yeah,
because you start grieving as soon as you get the
way before.
diagnosis because
Yeah.
you grieve the life that you thought you were going to have. And I don't mean that selfishly. I mean, just like you imagine there's going to be this happy two children and it's not.
I mean, yes, therapy for
Mm,
sure. What the interesting thing is, there's
mhm,
so much logistics and kind of like
mhm,
taking care of things, and
mm.
there is so much to do that, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know about you, but I found like showing up to making sure all of the appointments, making sure that
Yeah.
everyone knows where to be. You can get really overwhelmed with stuff to do,
Mm,
people to update, like updating
yeah.
people every time something changes, which is basically every 10
Mm,
minutes, is then this
yeah.
big cascade of like, how do you update people?
Mhm,
Blah. So then having some space where you can talk about how you feel completely on your own terms
yeah.
is really important, because in every other relationship you're showing up. Like, I remember trying to, make
Mhm,
my parents feel okay about it, or
yeah.
trying to kind of make everybody else be like, oh no, well, we're going to be fine, or I've got some bad
Mhm,
news, but it's, all. And I think there is very little time for just
yeah.
you and your own thoughts, which maybe, I mean,
Mm.
maybe it's all designed that way and they overwhelm you deliberately so that you're like, I don't have a second to think about those things. But
Yeah.
I also remember, I mean, for us, when we stayed in hospital, there's no bed or
Mm,
anything. You have to sleep in a chair or just on a plastic sofa, and
yeah.
that's it. Did you have the same?
Yeah, we had a whole system because we were in and out and we were switching back and forth. But we had, first of all, we had a book because, I mean, then came COVID, which made it even
Oh,
harder
yeah.
because it was like, stay with India for 5 minutes, we'd run back up and down. Somebody would be with Olivia in a car park and we'd do the switch, throw the book at each other. But it was because you just forget things. Like, you're like, who are you? What are you testing for? What drugs are you putting in her now? So we had this whole like book where we would just write almost like our
That's a
own
really good
like,
idea.
but it
That's
because
a
you just
really good idea.
and I don't know about you, but it was very overwhelming. I think they do it obviously because they have to, but also there are supports in different people who come and see you. But it was overwhelming that, okay, who are you? So there's the social
Yeah, oh, yeah.
worker, then it's the occupational therapist, then it was the
Yeah.
financial person, then it's the doctor.
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
I don't remember
And
any of you.
sometimes, because it was COVID, they would put the doctor's face on an iPad, then on a trolley, and just wheel it in, and the face would appear on an iPad. And I remember
I didn't have
that
that.
one really clearly. And we were in the PICU, and he
Mm,
just had like one brain surgery, and
yeah.
I was always asking, well, what's
Mm,
next? Well,
yeah.
what could we do next? And there was this iPad in front of us with the doctor's face, and they said, well, if this doesn't work, the next thing would be that we could take out the left-hand side of his brain.
Really?
And we were just sort of looking at each other like,
Yeah.
did you did you just hear that? And it was coming from like an iPad on a stick kind of
Yeah.
thing. And I mean, it's just like the most ridiculous. We're like, "Oh, right,
Mm,
okay, thank you. Yeah, okay, we'll get back to you."
yeah.
I mean, but some of the stuff you go through is, I mean, it's like I mean, I feel bad for the doctors. They are
Mm,
making
mm,
probably some of the most unbelievable conversations. They just have to kind of
yeah.
get it out there and say things. And then you're like,
Yeah.
there was one point where they called us mid brain surgery and said, oh, we think we're going to have to take a bit more of the brain away. And we're like, oh, okay, I mean, guess you do it. Like, what's
Yeah.
the impact of that? And I think I said this to you before. And they said, well, we don't think that he would be able to drive if we did this. And we were like, okay,
You're like,
okay, Brad, do we need him to be able to drive? I think I. driving.
I think we're good.
He's 18 months. I think we're good. It's okay. Yeah, move ahead. Forget about the driving. It's okay. I mean, it's literally like,
Like, did you just ask me that?
did you just ask me that? Okay, no, thank you. And
Like,
it's like you have nowhere to go with these conversations. You're just looking at each other like, is this real? This is
yeah,
real. And like, I think we did laugh. I mean,
yeah. Oh, you have to
literally,
do.
yeah.
I can
Like,
remember it was COVID and we had when we had homeschooled Olivia and India, who didn't really go to school, but that is that homeschooling time. And so they were both had an important meeting and they're both set up on iPads. And you know, when you think you're just winning at life, I was like, yes, Olivia's on an iPad doing her lesson. She's got a headphone, she's occupied, and I was on a call. Anyway, all I just see is this little hand and just like all over her hand. And then she went like this on her face. And I was like, no, like, you know, they just like slammed the laptop down. It's like, oh my God.
oh my
And all I
God.
hear in the
Oh.
background, I think we've lost Amy.
I
I'm like,
think
there,
Amy
with like
might have.
covered in crap. And
Oh my
it's just,
God.
you have to laugh.
Yeah, you have
It
to
was
laugh.
stressful, but you have to laugh because yeah, your sense of humor is everything.
Did you, like, do work calls kind of from hospital often, and kind of how did you do? Because I guess for Paul as well, he would have also been working. It's like, how I mean, I remember doing and just being like, "This is completely
Mm,
normal for us, don't worry," like,
mm,
no stress. But yeah, life does kind of go on, and particularly in America, like, your health insurance is
yeah.
connected to your job. They are kind of one thing.
And in a bizarre way, I actually appreciated that
Yeah.
because it was very overwhelming. You need different outlets. You can't, and well, some people do, and I really feel for those people because it's very overwhelming. But yeah, it was in a weird way. COVID made it a bit easier for us because
Yeah,
everyone went
same.
remote. And it was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, this is normal. We're going to be sitting on computers. And it was very calm. India was occupied in hospitals. So it actually made it a little bit easier in a
Yeah.
bizarre way. But yeah,
Yeah, everyone was dialing in from weird places,
yeah,
but it was unlikely that many others were dialing in from a hospital, but it just kind of
yeah,
became the norm, and I also found there's so much waiting around.
yeah, yeah,
So much waiting around, where
yeah,
actually I'm happy to do a call or think about a different
yeah.
problem that is quite easy to solve. And I think that's
Mm,
another thing is, do you feel does some of your happiness today come from the fact that kind of the worst has almost happened, and so you can feel quite sort of liberated in life? That is kind of like partly how I feel, and I
mm.
I, I don't know. How does it feel to live an everyday life now?
I think, yeah, it definitely puts things in perspective. I'm sure
For sure.
it's sometimes you think, do I really need to worry about that? I don't. And I think health is now, that is the wealth.
Yeah.
Money, yes, money makes the world go round. We all need money, but health is wealth. And I don't just mean, okay, you haven't got cancer or you haven't broken a leg or something like that, but your mental, physical, spiritual well-being is your currency. If you
Yeah.
don't have that, it doesn't matter how much money you have or how many things you have. So I think that has made me realize that you
No.
need to look after yourselves, your connections, your partnerships, your community, more
Or
than trying to earn as much money, put certain things in perspective. I think if you knew you would just be happy. Like I
yeah.
smile when I think of her because she had a sense of humor. Like I found a picture of her the other day that she had put when she was quite young, just put two balloons like here. So she's this tiny little kid with like these massive boobies. She would just have, and she had limited understanding of certain things because obviously the brain was pushing on certain things and it was a brain related disease, but she still had just this amazing sense of humor
Yeah.
and she it was enjoying life. And I think that's what makes me feel kind of happy that she lived life. I think I would feel very differently if her time with us was not happy or joyful, she would skip into the hospital. She would, I mean, to a point of, God, this is going to go wrong. She would pull, she had a port and it would be attached to like 5 infusion pumps. Instead of using her hands to pull the pole, she'd use her port. So she would be like, God, the whole thing's going to shoot out. But she would, and that did happen once. The other time, the whole thing fell on her. But she had such a joyful personality
Yeah.
and
And
sense of
and
humor.
I mean, I feel the same about Blue, as in
Mm,
that he is so blissfully unaware of all of
yeah,
the stuff that goes on in life that everyday people worry about, and he is most of the time happy
yeah.
and kind of laughing and is 100% motivated by hugs and is
Oh,
kind
I
of like
love that.
a superhuman. And I think
Yeah.
obviously, the situations are obviously really different, but
Mm,
I think we both went through brain surgery after brain surgery kind of like at a similar time during
yeah.
COVID. And I remember us like talking about seizure meds and kind of,
Mm,
"Oh, what are you on? And what drugs are you
yeah.
on? And what are the side effects of this?" And, and you sort of become a neurologist basically,
Yeah.
because the language you have to suddenly pick up and understand to
Yeah.
be able to navigate these conversations with people and be like, right, sis, one of the things that I worry about often, which I try and like stay calm about, is what do we do when we're dead? And that he will, outlive us, but will
Mm,
need full time care. And
yeah.
how does that impact Goldie? Because that
Yeah.
shouldn't be her life. I don't want her to feel the burden of that. So it's almost like a reverse planning of
Mm,
kind of, well, we're not going to be here, therefore what do we plan for him? And that
mm.
is kind of terrifying.
What do you do, if you don't mind me asking, in terms of how do you prepare for that mentally and, I suppose, practically?
I think there's a couple of things. One is try and keep life as simple and enjoyable every day as you can. And I think that really helps with a lot of things because,
Mm,
like you said, it puts things in perspective. And like, look,
mm,
I can still understand like a client problem or,
mm,
a creative issue or a
mm.
finance problem at work or whatever and take that seriously. But I don't think that, that is necessarily keeping me up at night. In fact, it really helps like filter other problems and
Yeah.
priorities. So I think definitely one is be the best you can each day
Yeah.
because, life is precious. I think that's one thing. I think like you, like
Mm,
definitely some therapy, spiritual
mm,
stuff. Like I've really enjoyed doing kind of elements of coaching that are slightly like out of left field. So things that involve human design,
mm,
or I got really into astrology and I have
yeah.
an astrologer and I absolutely love, it's similar to
Mm,
what you were saying where I, I am meant to be Blue's mum. We are meant to be his
yeah.
parents. This is our purpose. And it's kind of, if you can flip it to be like
Mm,
that didn't happen to you, this was made for you kind
yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
And it completely changes your outlook, and actually you're like, "Oh, I'm really lucky
Mm,
to have this." And I don't know, it just sort of lights a fire in you that kind of
yeah.
helps you see things differently. But I think spiritual stuff is definitely helpful, and I think people are scared of it or think it's weird, but I
Yeah.
think it's amazing and it can change everything. And then obviously there's practical things, I think that we need plans for him,
Mm,
but hopefully we've got a bit of time, and that
mm,
I try not to worry about that too much right now.
mm,
But the neurology thing like still lives on. And actually I got put in touch with a family whose son was born with this disease.
mm.
And I remember instantly being like, okay, what meds have you tried? This one. It kind of all came back quite quickly. But
Yeah.
actually, the most useful thing I was able to say to this other mum, and I'd love to hear about what other families that you kind of get involved with.
Mm,
I remember saying to her right at the beginning, when obviously she thought her world was shattered and, her newborn baby's been diagnosed with a rare disease that's
mm.
incurable. I said, no matter what, you will be happy. And I know
Yeah.
that that is impossible to imagine right now, but I
Mm.
promise you, no matter what happens, you will be happy.
That's a great piece
And
of advice.
and I was like, I wish someone had said that to
Yeah.
me. And it is hard to believe, but it's
Yeah.
like, no matter what, you will be happy. Does any of that
That resonates because I think I can't remember who said to me, but they said, "You can't push time, and you can prepare for certain things, but you have to kind of get over. So what does that mean? Okay, so what am I going to be going to do? Like when we went into it, like, okay, 3 months, you can't think of it like that. You have to go back to being present in that moment. And how are you going to make that day,
Yeah.
that child, whether it's Olivia, India, happy as you can? Yeah, you're going to fuck it up. You're going to
Yeah.
fuck it up one day and
Yeah.
it's not going to work out, but trying to move on from that day. And then the next day, the sun always rises and you start again and you get your tracksuit on and you,
Yep.
you go at it again. But I think, yeah, I wish somebody had told me as well that and again, I'm not happy all the time, and
No, of
there's
course.
but you are going to find some peace
Yeah.
with what's happened, maybe, or some acceptance, or even you mentioned luck, and I think that was a really important thing for us. That I've kind of flipped it, and I was like, I'm so lucky that I had India. How lucky am I to
Yeah.
have had India that now loads of people recognize? Like I was in a dance class. That was the other thing that helped. Dancing, music and dancing helped. And this lady came up to me and she said, well, she came up to Paul and said, "You're India's dad, aren't you?" And for him and for that lady to say, "You're India's dad," he was like, "Yes, I am." And like the pride, yeah, I am
Yeah.
India's dad, and it really meant a lot to him. But she said I was by India's tree. Some good friends planted a tree in
I've
our
seen
the
it. Yeah.
park, and I walked by the tree, and I really want to sing, and I thought of you, both of you, that you've learnt to DJ, you've learnt to play drums. I can sing. And it was that kind of, yeah, India's got that
Inspiring
kind
other
of,
people.
yeah.
My
So
God.
I,
That's amazing. Like people coming up to you and being like, "Are you?"
yeah,
You're like, "Yeah,
yeah,
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 yeah, yeah." Celebrity, yeah, celebrity, famous. So the DJing, I love that, and I've seen you DJ at like Soho House Miami or something ridiculous like that. Like, how did that happen?
midlife crisis
Yeah,
coming in hot.
podcast midlife crisis coming in hot.
It was, do you know what? I always wanted to do it. And I actually always wanted to be a podcast. So when I got your call, I was like, "Oh, this is the universe." But Paul was, I'd, mentioned it to him, obviously never did anything with it, procrastinated or whatever. So he knows that I need a deadline. So he, one Christmas, 3 years ago, said, "Oh, I've got you DJ lessons." And I was like, "Oh, you really listened to me and I really appreciate that you've listened to me." And he said, "Yeah, so I've got you DJ lessons, I've got you 10. In a month's time, you're going to be DJing someone's 40th birthday at Soho Beach House." I'm like, "You don't know me. Like, why you don't know me? This is not me." But it was like, it was credit to him. He gave me like a kick up the arse to
Yeah,
say, you can do it. You can
yeah,
do it.
yeah.
But have you got any
Amazing.
ridiculous midlife crisis?
Well, I definitely I think I've heard a lot of people say, like, getting into, like, health and fitness
Yeah.
and kind of exercise has been, like, really transformational. I've
Yeah.
not quite got that far yet. I would say that my only hobby is tanning, and I think it always has been. But I think finding real interest in things
Yeah.
like astrology and that maybe
Yeah.
things are the way that they are and,
Mm.
just believing in something greater than us that's not
Yeah.
quite religion, but just like there is a reason for stuff. If the tide can go
Mm.
in and out on its
Yeah.
own,
Yeah.
and we get morning and night, daylight, and the sun spins around the earth and all of this crazy shit that
Mm.
we completely believe in, and we get seasons and it just happens.
Yeah.
Of course there's a reason why people have different
Mm.
characters and personalities and traits
Yeah.
and qualities, and it is all designed
Mm.
so that we can all be here on earth to fill the gaps of what other
Yeah.
people can and can't do. And
Yeah.
I probably sound like a
Mm.
preacher or something, but it is really nice to that you have a
Mm.
purpose and that things are meant to be this way, and trust in the timing of
Yeah.
everything. And yeah, I'm sure there
And
are lots of people that would listen to this and think that I'm an absolute nutcase, but I really find joy and happiness in those kind of things. Do
well,
you?
That's the thing. Yeah. Oh no, I love it. I'm probably terrible, but I love it. And I think that that was the one thing that India, well, amongst many things, but the one big thing that India taught us was have joy. So when you do hobbies, and even when it relates to work, how are you showing up? But positively, how are you showing up? And if it's making a fool of yourself on a DJ set, but you are having an absolute blast, then that's what life's about.
Yeah, exactly. Why not? As in, why not? I think that I am more willing to take risks, and not like
Yeah.
major irresponsible risks, but
Mm,
I think doing this
yeah.
is a risk,
Mm,
and, why the fuck not? Like, actually, do I really care that much what
mm,
people think anymore? I
yeah.
think it's kind of like it is that, like, being at peace with
Mm,
with yourself, and I think being forced to go through something like what you have is almost
yeah.
like you shed your armor and you
Yeah.
kind of are just a bit like, it is what it is,
Yeah.
and it kind of takes you to a place where you are fearless,
Mm,
which is actually quite fun and liberating,
yeah.
and I kind of almost would never want to be any other way. Obviously, it took a lot to get here, but
Mm.
still, like, I mean, I'm sure that India makes you feel fearless.
She does. And we actually, funny you should say the word fearless, because just before she got diagnosed, we took her to New York and we've got this amazing picture of her by the Fearless Girl. And it's that kind of thing. She was fearless. And I would say there's only a handful of moments where she was in pain or she was upset, but she was fearless. Would remember going to Colorado, and my one of my really good friends, we took her on a hike. It's an absolute disaster because Indy just kept wanting to like jump the cliff faces. She was great,
Fearless.
which I love. Yeah, Phyllis, and that little bit crazy. Like, yeah,
Yeah. Yes.
sounds like a crazy idea. Let's do it.
Some one coach that I worked with, I think I'd said to her, "Oh, I'm sure people think that I'm crazy half the time." And she was like, "So what? Embrace the crazy." And I was like, and I really do think it is okay to be a bit different, and
Yeah.
like, that's all right. And so today, obviously, you have a full-time job.
Mm.
Get out of bed every day and go to work. And, how do you think that all of this has kind of changed you and how you show up at work for other people? Like,
Mm.
who you are, how you are. How has it changed you?
I think I was always empathetic,
Yes, 100%.
I think.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah, I
I
mean,
can confirm. Yes.
you know the before and after. So I'd like to think that I always have, whatever the situation, like a mindset that is fair, considered
Yeah.
approach to how I work. But it made me really think about the kind of energy that we bring to work, how we protect our own energy, how we contribute through energy, and not to sound kind of wishy-washy, but just how we smallest things can go a long way. So always, where you can, take the time to learn things about people
Yeah.
beyond the actual task at hand. So it's not a transactional thing. I think at work and the best teams, I mean, having worked together, some of the best teams that we had when we worked together were because we were all connected. We were
Yeah.
energetically connected through power ballads or whatever it was. We
Yeah.
were connecting with each other, humans first, and then that builds on the work. And you can see it in teams and in the dynamics. And I think that's what I probably have learned, is that there's always a human aspect to
Yeah.
work.
I
It's not.
literally just got chills when you were talking about, but I couldn't agree with you more, and this is
Mm,
kind of why I wanted to do this, is because
mm,
I think it is all about people, but the whole person and
yeah,
connection and how people come together to
mm,
achieve amazing things. And if you can get team dynamics and
mm,
people right, you can
mm,
achieve anything. It
yeah,
is kind of, and I think it's
mm,
fascinating that it isn't really top of the agenda at work. Like,
mm,
it happens, and I think people, consider it important, but I don't think people are like, live or breathe, this has to happen for us to be
mm,
successful. And I think the world would be a much better place if we did.
Yeah.
And that even more, we're gonna need to lean on humanity and connection and understanding each other truly, not just like a transaction, like you said, like truly understanding the human at the other end of
Yeah.
the conversation or the problem. And I don't know. I mean, I just feel like if you don't understand the person, you don't understand the
Mm.
problem. And then how can you come up with a solution?
Exactly. And it's also thinking about you're not always right. Even if
No.
there's a hierarchy of expertise, let's say, you're not always right, and learning to accept. And that was actually our doctor. He was always listening to our questions and he would explore every stupid question that we asked. He would go away, he would research it, and he would say, this is why I don't. He was tremendous. There was always that human aspect. He was solving a big problem. And he would listen to us, the non experts of brain cancer, and he would go every time. And it came a running joke because he'd say, very good question. And probably thinking, that is incredibly stupid. Always had this curious mindset, like never stop learning. You're never, this is like the DJ thing. I mean, it's a hobby at the moment, but it was that curiosity of
Yeah.
I'm not always right. I could learn something off everybody. Our doctor had it, our nurses had it. They were always just, I'll just explore that. I'll just tinker away with that. And I genuinely believe that that's why India lived for so long, because they were constantly trying to look for solutions, how to support us. And I think that's what you need to bring to work is you can get stuck and people are complex and you can get stuck very easily
Yeah.
if you go into the process of the HR manual says you
Yeah.
have you have to think I'm dealing with a complex human and
Yes.
I need to figure this out and I need to meet them where they are sometimes or I
Yeah.
need to sit back and listen. So there's a big element of curiosity that I think India, our doctors taught us and how to show up at work.
I so agree, and often I say, like, we need to think upside down, or,
Yeah.
like, quite often, if I find myself thinking, like, "I want this to happen," or whatever, and then you can tell in a kind of conversation or
Mm,
something, it's not going the way that you want.
mm,
It's like, why am I wedded to that
yeah.
solution? Like, throw it out. So what if it did go in a completely different
Mm,
direction? It's kind of, like, it is being willing to kind of, like you say, be wrong, explore different things, look at different things that you've never thought of before, or sometimes just do the opposite to what you feel. And sometimes when, your brain is saying, no, 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 you could easily be saying, yeah, why not? Let's look at it. Let's think about it.
India and having gone through what I've been through makes me want to do better things for people. I think
Yeah.
everybody, you said when you spend so much time at work, I think if you love coming to work, then you're going to do great things.
And I
So,
can't wait until some people that you work with or that lovely man that gave you a massive hug watches this and says, "She's incredible." But I think everyone who looks in from the outside, no doubt, would think,
mm,
"What a brave, incredible, strong, special woman and family." And I think that part of it, and I don't know if you've experienced this, is that going through something that you do tend to see the best of people as well,
mm,
as in
yes.
that, it is awkward for people to kind of find the right thing to say. However,
Mm,
people do show up in amazing ways when,
yeah.
things happen. Like I remember, we leaving hospital and people just showing up on our doorstep with food
Yeah.
or meals. And, they were like, we don't want to stay long. We've just, bought you food, or people would just have things delivered just out
Mm,
of the blue. And
mm,
it is humanity showing up for humanity when things really kind of, when the shit hits the fan. But
mm,
it's also really nice to see that just every day, because
yeah.
why not? Like, that's what we need.
Yeah. No, it's all in the small things as well, like that hug, like just saying hello, just how was your weekend? You seem like you're struggling with that. How can I help? There's all of those small things. I do agree with you. I really see the best in people. Oh,
But I mean, I've absolutely loved this, and we have so much more to talk about. And again, I love you. Thank you.